What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Draft Nerds. Today, we're going to be talking about my top 6 wide receivers in the 2026 class. Now, we are past the Senior Bowl. We're getting deeper into this draft cycle. We're getting more familiar with this draft class. So just keep in mind, that being said, this is still loose rankings. These are going to change and adapt over the next couple of months as we approach the NFL draft. But right now, this is kind of how I'm viewing the top guys at the wide receiver position in this class. So let's just kick it off. You guys can see the list here. It is going to be number one for me, Jordyn Tyson. Jordyn Tyson, a junior coming out of Arizona State, 6'2", 200 pounds. He has the size, the weight that you want to see from a wide receiver at the next level. And Jordyn Tyson is just one of the most impressive wide receivers in this class for me on film. The route running is insane. He has very nice hands, very reliable hands. He has a great feel for offense and specifically really where the other receivers in his offense are running routes at the same time. The spatial awareness that he plays with is elite. And he has this savviness in his route running that reminds me a lot of this basketball crossover. It reminds me a lot of guys like Justin Jefferson, really, when I see him running routes, and guys like JSN that we've seen be very successful at this level. So his route running is top tier. It's the best in the class that I have seen so far in any of my deep dives. And I really like what we've seen from Jordyn Tyson. I think he's going to translate to be a very, very good NFL wide receiver. There are injury concerns, but I did talk about in my deep dive that I'm not as concerned about some of those injuries because a lot of them are not repetitive, same type of injury. It's just more so some bad luck that we've seen for Jordyn Tyson, but we'll see what happens. Durability is definitely a concern. He's still my number one wide receiver in this class, but in the same tier, I have the other two wide receivers as well, Makai Lemon and Carnell Tate. Let's talk Makai first because he does come in as my number two. 5'11", 195 pounds, a junior coming out of USC. This guy is a monster across the middle of the field. Super tough, really strong hands, a yak machine. If he gets the football in the open field, he's going to be really hard to catch. And he almost turns into a running back with the football in his hand. So he is one of the most creative players after the catch in this class. And I think that's going to translate to a lot of stuff at the next level. Teams are going to love that. The big playability, it's off the charts for a guy like Makai Lemon. I hope that when he actually measures in at the combine, he is 5'11" and 195 pounds. Hopefully he doesn't get that Diego Pavia where he's not actually the height that they list him at and he's a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter. Hopefully that doesn't happen for Makai Lemon. Either way, it didn't really show up on tape. If he is a little bit smaller, it didn't show up. He played really big at USC. So let's go to Carnell Tate. He's the last in the tier one of the wide receivers for me and the last of the big three. And this is not a knock having him at 3. I think he's a fantastic wide receiver. Reminds me a lot of George Pickens. Does a lot deep downfield. He stacks defensive backs and makes them pay if you have the right type of quarterback. Obviously, he had that at Ohio State with Julian Sayin, but like I said, reminds me a lot of George Pickens. Really strong hands, great body control, good against the sideline, on the boundary. I think he's a player that you can plug in and play anywhere on your offense. And he feels like the wide receiver of all of these guys that we've talked about so far that probably has the safest floor and the easiest ability to translate to the NFL game. I think if you were looking at any of them and you said, who is most likely not to be a bust at the NFL? It's probably Carnell Tate. So he comes in for me as my wide receiver 3 out of Ohio State, 6'3", 195 pounds. Great player there in Carnell Tate and great players for all 3 of these guys. I really like all of these wide receivers so far. Coming in as my wide receiver 4, I got Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M. He's a junior, 5'11", 190 pounds, and he's the lightest of the wide receivers so far. Like I said with Makai Lemon, hopefully he actually measures in right around here because if he's any smaller, it's a little bit more worrisome. And I think the reason why I say it's a little bit more worrisome for Concepcion rather than a guy like Lemon is because he's not as good, with some of the hands that Makai Lemon is. He struggled with some drops at this level. He is a yak threat, the athleticism, the long speed, the burst. All of these things show up on tape for Concepcion. He's a very good route runner as well. But like I said, he struggled with some drops. The physicality is an issue for him at times. So there is a definite teardrop to Concepcion. But I think if he comes in 5'11", 190, he should still be able to translate. Reminds me a little bit of a guy like Khalil Shakir for the Buffalo Bills. But definitely a great player. He's more athletic than Shakir, but a very good player that I think is going to translate to the next level, assuming that the size is actually what they say it is. Now, going on to my wide receiver 5, I do have Germie Bernard, wide receiver out of Alabama. He's a senior, 22 years old, 6'1", 204 pounds. This is a guy who reminds me a lot of Emeka Egbuka. He is a zone beater, very reliable, savvy route runner, a guy that if you give him too much leverage, he's going to make you pay. And he's not a crazy yak guy. I don't think he's a guy that's really super athletic either, but he is just so good. He's probably one of the most NFL-ready wide receivers outside of the guys that are in the big three. I think he's one of the safer guys in this draft as well if you were trying to project guys that can translate their skill set to the next level. And somebody I'm very excited about. As you guys know, Jared is excited about him too. We've talked about him plenty of times on this channel before, but he comes in for me as my wide receiver 5 and the only senior on this list, because the only other guy here in tier 3 as of right now to round out the top 6 is going to be Denzel Boston out of Washington, a junior, 6'3", 210 pounds. And this is another guy who's very different than guys like Concepcion and Bernard. He's a guy who is going to be a big physical wide receiver on the outside, an X, a boundary guy, super strong hands, doesn't do a ton after the catch, but he's going to beat you with that physicality. I think he's a guy who reminds me a little bit of a guy like Courtland Sutton for the Denver Broncos. Think of how he plays in that offense. I think Boston could do that as well. And this is also another player who's getting some first-round buzz. We could see all of these players that I just talked about here today in this video end up being top 50 picks in the NFL draft. And if that does translate, we're going to have a decent wide receiver class on our hands. Right now, this is how I'm viewing the top 6. You guys let me know how you feel about these players in the comments down below. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? I know we're only 6 deep. We're going to get even deeper as the year goes on. If you want to watch any of these players, go watch them in our Dynasty film room. That is a benefit for our Nerd Herd members. It's less than a cup of coffee every month, and you can get your eyes on the tape that I am watching myself. So go check it out. Let me know what you guys are seeing. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Till then, peace out.